I want to ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest and candid with your answer, even if you just keep it to yourself. The question is, when was the last time that you reached out to someone in your professional network? Not because you needed something, but because you genuinely wanted to. Most people I speak to can't even remember, and I get it, right? Corporate life, for the most part, doesn't exactly reward genuine connections. It, of course, rewards on performance, outcomes, and the results. The relationship side, the actual human bit, if you will, tends to get squeezed out. That said, here's the thing about the 30-something years of professional relationships that perhaps you and I have built. They don't disappear when your job title does. They're sitting there, quietly waiting, either in your LinkedIn connections, on your phone contacts, or even in your email inbox. And most people, at exactly the moment where they need others most, they perhaps are a little bit too embarrassed to pick up the phone or even fire off a DM. In this episode, I hope to change that. So, grab a cup of something good and, well, you know the rest. Let me begin with one of my favourite words that begins with R. Amongst my favourite words beginning with R are rest, retainer, revenue, rum and raisin ice cream, and red velvet cake. Mwah. Unfortunately, it's none of those. The R that I'm referring to is reframe. And I think most people think about networking as something that you do when you need a job. You polish up your profile, you update your resume, your LinkedIn, you fire off connection requests to people halfway around the world that you may not even know in the hope that something lands. That kind of networking is truly exhausting, and it almost never works. The thing is, people can smell desperation, and you and me both know that, and you can definitely spot a copy and paste message a mile off. Fortunately, I'm not here to talk about any of those inauthentic methods. I'm talking about something that's completely different. I'm talking about the network that you've already built through the 25 or 30 something years of working alongside real people, solving real client problems, and building something that really is concrete and real together. Think about it, honestly and genuinely. How many people have you worked with over the course of your career who genuinely respect you, who know what you're capable of, who, if you call them tomorrow, would actually pick up the call? I expect the number is probably larger than you may think, and that network built on real history and genuine trust, getting into, moreover getting out of mischief together, is worth infinitely more than any amount of cold outreach to strangers. The problem isn't the network doesn't exist. The problem is that most people haven't connected to it in a number of years, and that now feels really awkward to reach out. So here are a few ways that you could genuinely fix that awkwardness. Now, there's a version of this conversation that would probably go, I neglected LinkedIn for years and then had to rebuild from scratch after my redundancy. And that would be a really nice, tidy story. Though, that's not my story. The truth is, for me, LinkedIn has been one of those most deliberately and intentionally cultivated parts of my professional life for a very long time. Not because I followed some guru's playbook, it's because I understood something very early on that most people in corporate actually missed entirely. My perspective is your LinkedIn presence is not your CV. It's also not a record of where you've been. For me, it's a live signal of who you are and what you think right now. And if you're not sending that signal consistently, someone else in your space, I believe, is. And they're also getting the opportunities that potentially could be yours. When redundancy hit me for the third time, and I want to be really clear about this, my LinkedIn profile didn't need rebuilding. It simply needed redirecting. Right now, I currently have about 5,500 LinkedIn connections built over years of genuine professional relationships. People who I've worked alongside, people who've commissioned me, people who have learned from me, but more importantly, people who I've learned from, who've been in the room with when things went right and when things went slightly sideways. That network didn't disappear when my contract with my previous employer ended. It was just waiting for me to say, what's coming next? So here's what I actually did, and I'm gonna be specific because specificity is really useful and I don't want it to be generic. The first thing that I changed was the story that my profile was telling, not just the headline, the narrative, the about section, the banner, the way the whole profile answered the question, why should I spend 30 seconds here? I rewrote it, I redefined it using my favourite weapons of mass creation, paper and pencil, and I redefined it all around where I was going rather than where I'd been. Not abandoning my experience, not at all, but anchoring it to the next chapter. At which point I then doubled down and focused on content. Not content for the algorithm, but content that I thought was valuable and content for the people I actually wanted to reach. I'm a huge believer in real connections, not playing for the algorithm. My today's office post became one of the formats that genuinely landed consistently. It's a really simple premise. My office is anywhere and everywhere, given that I'm now a freelancer. And everywhere that I was working on that particular day, I thought I would take a snap and share it. It could have been from a cliff top, and some days it was. It was a coffee shop, perhaps a departure lounge in an airport, a hire car in the desert. The point wasn't the location. The point was that someone building something independently doesn't have a fixed desk or a fixed schedule. All of that can flex and flow as they see fit. The point is that they are building a life that's entirely theirs. And that image, that quiet proof that another way of working is entirely possible, resonates with a number of people who are inside and outside a corporate structure. But it's also proof that one day they could potentially do the same. I read a phenomenal book by a lady called Mandy Hickson, a former fast-jet RAF pilot, and she inspired me by regaling me with a story that's in her book that her grandfather told her, and it's simply this: you cannot become what you cannot see. So for me, whatever I see, be it today's office, inside or outside, I'll share it for others. Also, the content that I create that performed consistently wasn't necessarily the polished professional post. It was one of honesty, of being candid, the redundancy story, the supply chain perspective nobody else was sharing in plain English. The behind the scenes of rebooting True Norf, the career and freelance lessons that have taken some 30-something years for me to learn and 30 seconds to share. I'm a massive fan of trying to pay it forward, and if I can pay it forward and somebody benefits, I'm all the more fulfilled. Every one of the posts that I've put out is a signal, and the right people have picked that signal up. What did LinkedIn produce? Directly, concretely, freelance leads, reconnections with people that I've worked with years ago who came back into my orbit because they saw some of the content that I was creating and it gave them a reason to reconnect. Of course, it also meant a meaningful increase in profile visibility and follower growth, and invitations as well, to collaborate and contribute to something that's much bigger than myself. To speak, to be part of conversations I'd never thought of playing in if I'd stayed invisible. All of that, all from simply showing up, consistently, honestly, candidly, and also with something that's valuable and worth saying. So if you're going to take anything from this, here's what I really want you to take away. You don't need to rebuild your LinkedIn presence from scratch. If you spent 20 or 30 years building a professional life, the raw material is already there. The connections exist, the credibility exists, and the stories exist. I think what most people are missing isn't the network. I think it's simply the narrative, the consistent, honest, maybe candid signal that tells your network and the people your network knows exactly what you're doing right now and what you're building next. And that signal is free to send. I think it's also worth considering the cost of not showing up. It may be someone else with less experience that showed up and secured that opportunity that you could have landed. For me, not all connections are equal, and before you start reaching out, it helps to know which type of relationship you're dealing with, because the approach will be completely different for each. In my observation, I would say that there are 3 types of connection. Type 1, the warm inner circle. These are people you know well and would help you yesterday if you simply asked. Former close colleagues, trusted clients, people who've seen you at your best and at your worst. These relationships don't need warming up. They just need activating. A direct message, a call, a coffee, a DM, whatever it is to bring that connection back into your frame of reference. Tell them exactly what you're building and ask for their perspective. Not their contacts, not a favor, just their perspective. For me, certainly in my experience, the people that I've spoken to love being asked for their opinion. And the conversation that follows often opens doors you didn't know existed. Type 2 is the dormant connector, people who you've worked with meaningfully but haven't been in contact with for a few years. The history's there, but the connection has gone a little bit quiet. These need gentle reactivation, not a pitch, not a favour to ask, a genuine human message that acknowledges the gap and re-establishes the relationship. Reference something real and specific about your history together, maybe a bit of mischief that you got into and out of. Show that you remember. People are moved by the memories that you share. And finally, type 3 are the adjacent builders, people that you've never worked with directly, but who exist in your extended network. These could be friends of colleagues, people who engage with your content, professionals in your adjacent spaces. These relationships are built differently through value first and foremost. Share their content, comment thoughtfully, introduce 2 or 3 people who you think should know each other. Give before you ask, always. The people in your extended network who become your strongest advocates are almost always people you help before ever needing anything in return. Right, here's the practical piece, because this is what I want the 51st chapter to be. This is one of the most immediately actionable things in the entire series that you can start today, and it costs nothing, but for me and my experience, it works. You could call it the 10-touch reactivation plan. 10 people, 10 days, 1 genuine personal message per day, no copy and paste considered, no pitches permitted, no asks allowed, just pure reconnection. So here's the 10-touch reactivation plan. It's in 5 steps, and we'll start with step 1. Build your 10. Go through your LinkedIn connections and your phone contacts. Pick 10 people, a mixture of warm inner circle and dormant connectors, people who know your work, people whose respect you've earned, people you'd be genuinely glad to reconnect with. Write this list down with your weapons of mass creation. Step 2, write a real message. 1 message per person, personal, specific, and short. Reference something that's real, a project that you've worked on together, something they achieved that you remember, or something that was recently posted that caught your attention. That message should feel like it could only have been written to them and nobody else. Not a template. Make it a conversation starter. Step 3, ask 1 good question. End every single message with a genuine question. Not, do you know anyone who's hiring at the moment? But maybe something that's a bit more real, a bit more tangible. So for example, how are you finding the shift to hybrid working? Or what are you focused on this year? Or I'd love to get your take on what's going on in our industry right now. Make it easy for them to reply. Make them feel like their perspective truly matters. Because actually, if you think about it, it does. Step 4 is to show up on LinkedIn whilst the plan runs in the background. So whilst your 10-touch plan runs in parallel, post 1 piece of genuine content every 2 to 3 days. Your perspective on the industry, or something that you're learning, a question that you're sitting with, today's office moment, for example. It doesn't need to be polished, it does need to be genuine and real. The content gives the people you've messaged a reason to engage with you, and to surface you to people who haven't heard from you in a number of years. You also get to pick the medium, be it written, pictures, or video. So here's a quick word on content, because I know this is where most people stumble or potentially freeze. They stare at a blank post and think, what on earth am I actually going to say? And will anyone actually read it? I think the answer is yes, and it's more than you think. Because you have something most LinkedIn content creators don't. You have lived experience, real stories, hard-won perspectives. You're not performing expertise. You have it. Also, if your content is genuine and it's authentic, you're really cutting through a lot of the AI-generated posts that are out there. For me, I love authenticity. It really brings through that human edge and those human elements that the technology that we're working with today simply doesn't. So let me give you 5 examples of posts that have worked for me during my career transition. And the first one is the honest transition post. Tell your story, what changed, what you're building, what you've learned. Vulnerability on LinkedIn, done with dignity, I think is magnetic. People are drowning in polished personal branding. Someone telling the truth stands out immediately. Secondly, the today's office post. Wherever you're working from today, share it. A kitchen, a coffee shop, a coffee table, it doesn't matter where it is. It could even be a rental car in a client location. I don't think any of that matters. The image of someone who works on their own terms is quietly inspirational to anyone who's still in a corporate structure and is upset with that corporate structure. Keep the caption honest and grounded. The location is the hook, the thought is the value. Thirdly, an industry perspective post. What do you know about your industry that most people are struggling with? What patterns have you seen play out over decades? Your long view is genuinely valuable. So share the wealth. Pay it forwards. One insight clearly expressed is worth 10 generic takes, in my view. Number 4 is the lesson learned post. Something that took you 10 years to figure out, distilled into a single post. The best lessons are specific and counterintuitive, as well as personal. So for example, it might be, here's something that I got wrong about managing people, and what would I do differently now? Fifth and finally in this example, the celebration post. Share a small win, the first client, the first invoice. Oh, I can still remember mine. The first piece of content that landed, the first flight hour. People root for people who show their journey in real time. The celebration post is also the most shareable because it gives your network a reason to connect and to resonate with where you're at. Here's the thing about a network built over 30 years. It has depth, it has texture, it has genuine trust baked into its DNA, and it's the kind that takes years to build and can't be faked or rushed along. The best time to start building your LinkedIn network was 30 years ago. The next best time to start building your LinkedIn network is right now. For me, I didn't build my LinkedIn network after being made redundant for the third time. I built it during the 30 years of my career showing up for real people in real situations. The redundancy just changed what I was showing up to say. And my network responded, not because I asked it to, but because I'd been consistent enough, honest enough, candid enough, and specific enough that when the next chapter arrived, the people who really mattered really knew where I was going. One of my very first paid freelance gigs actually came directly from LinkedIn. Not from a pitch, not from a cold message, but from a post where I was honest about what I was doing and why. And someone who'd been watching quietly reached out and said, I didn't know that you were doing stuff on your own, Norf. I'd love to collaborate with you. Can we please chat? And this was the post that sparked that reconnection. You've already done the hard part. You've spent decades earning the trust of real people in your field and your adjacent fields. That trust doesn't expire when your current contract does. So go and use it and get engaged. If this episode was useful, do share it with someone who's been invisible on LinkedIn as well. You know exactly who I could be talking about. In episode 6 is the one that I call Reinventing Without Losing Yourself, and it goes somewhere where the other episodes haven't yet. And that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.